auch an alle Gäste. Gleich steigt es. Die letzte Runde, das letzte Stück, das ist natürlich
Jetzt am Fernsehen haben wir eigentlich gut gucken können durch ihre Arbeit.
Nee, überhaupt nicht. Also natürlich hat Martin Ege einen Sensationslauf im ersten Runde geballert.
150 athletes from 22 nations have come here to the Thuringian Forest in the center of Germany. We're in the village of Oberhof. It's a winter sports crazy village where they love their biathlon and their skiing and, of course, their luge. Women's singles earlier today, run number 1, world champion Lisa Schulte sits in 3rd place. That's where she's finished in each of the first 2 races this year. Julia Tobitz, the 4-time overall World Cup champion, is in search of World Cup victory number 30 in her decorated career. She's in 2nd place. But for the 2nd week in a row, leading things off, heading into run number 2, is Austria's Madeleine Egler. Austria has been dominating in the early going this season, picking up where they left off last year. And Selina Egler, Madeleine's sister, earlier today won for the 2nd time this season in women's doubles. But the story here is women's singles. We get set for run number 2, and I get set to reintroduce my broadcast partner. Under these cloudy, foggy conditions, it's the sunny disposition of Elsa Desmond. Elsa, welcome back.
Thank you for having me, Tim. So as we saw there, the weather still -2 degrees, still -2 on the ice with that 95% humidity. The track held up pretty well in that first run. We didn't see too much slowing, although there's definitely some visible frost on the track. It didn't seem to have too much effect on the times. Only 20 sleds in the second run compared to 30 in the first, so hopefully the track conditions won't be playing too big a factor there.
You saw those track records flash up. Those are records that were set 3 years ago now by Bierreiter and Mag. As we get another look at this track, the lower start, 938 meters. Tomorrow for men's singles, they'll start a little higher up on the track, but then they'll be right back down here for the team relay. Tricky corners, Elsa, right from the start, and especially down at the bottom.
Not the fastest track in the world. The women will be getting speeds of up to 110, maybe 112 at most. So not one of the fastest tracks, but definitely one of the more technical side. There's very quick, tight transitions here. You can see going into curve 4, this top section, not too fast, these big open corners as you're building speed coming through these top sections. Coming into curve 7, and this is where we get to the technical section. We have our curve 8, curve 9, curve 10. Any mistakes here will just compound, and it's so difficult to get it back. We might see problems here on the exit of 11, people hitting before 12 if they get those transitions wrong. And again, this is where it really catches up with them if they have problems. On the exit of that 13, we saw some people ping-ponging in the first run down that straight. We might see it again in the second, and then that big Kreisel into the finish.
29 started at the beginning of the day in run number 1. Notably absent, pulling out right before the race, was the USA's Emily Sweeney, ranked 3rd in the World Cup standings. Tweaked her neck during training. She'll miss out and rest and recover over the holiday. But of those 29, 20 have qualified for run number 2. And then another American, Emma Eriksson, will lead things off. Look out for Alina Bota and Kendia Aprayode. They're back in 15th and 14th position. That's a little surprising from a nation that does pretty well. And as you see, the top spots are dominated by Austria and Germany, with 1 American, 1 from Switzerland, and 1 from Italy in the top 10 after run number 1.
Yeah, we have to go down to 7th in the ranking to get someone from another nation outside of Austria and Germany. So they're really dominating those top spots. The question is who will be ranked where, which spots within those top 6 will go to which people from the Austrian and German teams.
Well, the story within the story is Austria's Madeleine Egler will look to make it 4 for 4 for the Egler sisters over the last 2 weeks. Meantime, her closest pursuer, Julia Tobitz, here on the track she trains on, is looking for career World Cup victory number 30. She leads all active athletes in singles, women's singles luge, with those 29 wins. But we start things off with a young American. Be a good title for a David Bowie song. This young American is Emma Erickson, 21 years old. She currently lives in Park City, Utah, where one of the 2 United States tracks is located, and where we will be again, not this season, but next season on the World Cup.
For Emma, the big thing here was getting into this second run. So she's done that. She had some problems in her first run. It was a bit scary in places. So for her, she'll just be looking to clean it up for the second run, put down a solid run, and then she can walk away happy that she made her 2 runs here as we go into Sigulda in the new year.
Erickson, a former top 12 finisher at the Junior World Championships. This is her first full year on the Senior World Cup Tour.
And it is such a big transition for these athletes. To go from the junior ranks into the seniors is a really big thing. Hitting there before 12, you saw she was high on the end of 11, late entrance into curve 13, but she manages that exit nicely. This is overall a better run than her first one, although there's still a few problems and things for her to clean up when we come back here in January.
Big tap right before the finish curve. Siobhan Forgan looking on, United States teammate who earlier today captured a podium position in women's doubles. Erickson through her second run time of 42.881, which is about 0.03 of a second faster than her first heat time.
Yeah, she had some more problems in her first run. This run overall was better. She did have some problems in that 11-12 transition, but she had a nice clean straight and a far better Kreisel than she had in the first run. This is just, you could see she was high at the end of 11, it pushed her across and she hit 12 early, but she managed it well, not getting pushed away by that wall.
As Elsa mentioned, the goal for many of these athletes, including Emma, is to get into a second run. That was accomplished. Now her goal will be to move up a spot or 2 if she can. And she only trails Nina Zugler by about 0.04 of a second. But the Italian obviously has a lot more experience. Zugler, the daughter of a 6-time Olympic medalist and an Olympian in her own right, Nina finished 15th at her first Olympic Games in Beijing in 2022.
Nina had quite a small lead on Emma in the first run, only 0.04, but she's managing to maintain that, just about 0.03 now. She will be looking to build on that. We saw Emma making some mistakes through that middle section, which we now see Nina is doing much cleaner, so we might expect her to move ahead. She's dropping back in time.
7,000 back into the green now. Nice job in the straightaway. Transition from 13 to 14, the finish Kreisel.
And that's where you could see she was in the red, and then when she got that clean transition through 11-12, where Emma had those problems, that's where she pulled ahead and was able to make up that time and finish 1/10 ahead.
Again, Elsa, we've seen many athletes in singles and doubles, even if they have a clean run, they may hit right before the finish line. How costly is that, if any, if at all?
It won't make much of a difference today. It's so close to the finish. Any difference it make will be minimal. When we will see it is tomorrow on that team relay. But athletes will really be pressing their head back in that Kreisel. You know you're almost at the finish. You know if you hit out there, it's not going to make a huge difference. So athletes really go for that in that second half of the Kreisel. They can't see and they just put their head back. Whereas tomorrow, coming into the team relay, we expect athletes to be a little bit more careful in that second half of that Kreisel, making sure that they get that clean exit, because the priority tomorrow will be the paddle.
3 Canadian women entered today's competition. You may call that a holy trinity. And here is Trinity. Trinity Ellis, 22 years old, from Pemberton, British Columbia. 2 races last year here in Oberhof for Trinity. She finished 16th and 17th. And she's sitting right at about that same position after run number 1 in 18th place.
Finished 5th in yesterday's Nations Cup, so she had that good ice on that first run. She was the #1 starter in this race. And she made use of that, getting this into the second run. She's putting down a nice run here so far, no major problems. A little bit of skidding there.
Quarter of a second advantage at this point. Ooh, some corrections there. Will she give it all away, Elsa?
I think she might just hang on into this finish. There we go. But she did definitely lose some of that time that she built up. She had those problems along the straight, hitting the walls on both sides, and it would just have cost her.
Ellis drops roughly a 1/10 of a second down there in the final curve, but still hangs on to protect her spot in 18th place. It could still move up a few spots depending on what happens with the next few sleds. In fact, her teammate getting ready at the top is only 0.02 of a second up on her.
You could see here she hit that right wall, bit of a skid going into curve 12, and in a moment again we'll see she had those problems coming out of curve 13. Little bit of problem here, too much rightward pressure, hit the right side, hits the left side. She did well to control it after that, but it cost her some time.
Happy New Year.
And we will be seeing
Happy holidays to all.
In the new year in Sigulda.
For sure, this is our final race before the holiday break. Caitlin Nash, 21 years old, out of Whistler, looking focused as she pulls off of the handles. 5 paddles and a pretty smooth settle. Elsa, I don't know if you had a chance to listen to Caitlin with her commentary. That was her debut effort in Lillehammer, and she did a great job.
I did. She did a fantastic job. It's sometimes a little bit nerve-wracking your first time in the commentary box, so huge well done to her on that. She's putting down a nice run here so far. She had a really smooth start and clean settle. No major problems here. She is...
Caitlin Nash has... Go ahead.
She is building her lead here.
And it's a lead over her teammate. She's a lot cleaner down here at the bottom than Ellis was, so she should hang on to her position. Caitlin Nash, 125.164. It's Canada, Italy, and USA. Top 4 in the very early going here in run number 2. Nash has been on the podium on her World Cup career, but that was in doubles.
I believe we're not seeing the Canadians at all the races this year. I don't think they're going to be coming onto the Asian circuit, but we'll see them back here in the new year on the European tracks before we head out to World Championships on their home track.
You know, Elsa, that brings up an interesting point. The last 2 races are in Asia, in South Korea and China. It's great that the Tour is going back to these tracks. It's great they're keeping those tracks active and competitive. But since it's the last 2 events, do you suspect there are other nations that may skip out, especially if they're not contending for World Cup titles?
Absolutely, I do expect we'll see a slightly smaller field at those races. However, speaking to people, it does sound like there are still the majority of the nations going, which is really good. We want to see these Asian tracks being used. We saw Korea being used earlier this year for the Youth Olympics, and it's great to be going back to China for the first time since the Olympics there.
And as Kendia Aprayode hits the ice, we should also add that the International Federation helps to pay for the expenses of a lot of the nations to make that long trip to Asia.
Absolutely. A little bit high there on the end of curve 11, but looking like a really clean run. She is gaining time down the track. And a really clean exit there of curve 13, just pressing that head back, keeping that line smooth.
To the finish in the lead. Kendia puts in a time of 42.397. That is decidedly better, 1400ths better than her first run, when the theme with Elsa and I was discussing the disappointing showings of the 2 Latvian women, 16th and 15th place, respectively, after the first heat.
Although I wouldn't be surprised if we see their times and results changing come the next race on their home track in Sigulda in the new year.
No doubt about that. That's where a couple of Kendia's podiums took place, one late last year. And if you look at your list, if you have it in front of you there, Elsa, the next several sleds, including Kendia's teammate Alina coming up next, they're all separated by just about 4 or 500ths of a second. So there's some movement to be made.
An incredibly close race here. As you said, there might be movement in these next few sleds as they're really small margins that we're looking at.
2-time World Cup winner, Alina Bota, formerly Alina Vitola. She was a surprise World Cup winner. Her first career victory was on a snowy day in St. Moritz, Switzerland, to complete the 2020 season, or I believe that was the 2021 season.
She started this run with just 9 thousandths over her teammate, but she is building on that lead so far.
Well, she has the fastest start time. This was the world start champion last season at the international event held in Lake Placid.
That was a fantastic event that we got to take part in. It's not something we often get to do. Really clean exit there. She's 1/10 ahead. She should maintain that as she goes into the finish on the green.
And she does, but by just 4/1000ths of a second. So advantage Bota at the start, Aparioda at the finish, and currently the two Latvians sit first and second, 6 sleds in.
Really clean exit there.
She got married over the summer. Her husband, Martins Bats, an Olympic medalist and race winner already this season in men's doubles. I love this at the finish here in Oberhof. More than any other track, the spectators are there to greet the athletes, and the athletes are willing to accommodate.
Yeah, generally Luge athletes are really warm and open people, so everyone wants to encourage the next generation to enjoy this sport as we have.
I mentioned just a second ago that Alina Bota won on a very snowy day in Switzerland, her first World Cup win. This woman's first and only World Cup victory was also a snowy day in Altenburg, Germany, many seasons ago. I want to say about 5 years ago now. Sandra Robacher, the 29-year-old, on course right now, 14th after run number 1.
As we said, these athletes, they had such tight margins coming into this second run that really no one had a huge amount of advantage. She's already into the red here, just not managing to keep up with Bota. No major issues here. It's looking quite clean, but that time is just bleeding away from her. Really good form there down that straight, pressing that head back as she goes into the Kreisel.
125.035, that puts her 1/10 of a second behind the two Latvians. Sandra Robacher dropping a few spots, likely, depending on what happens with the next couple of sleds.
Shaking her head there on the finish, not the result she was hoping for on that run.
And her teammate, Verena Hofer, begins the second run 4 spots ahead of Robacher in the battle of who will represent Italy tomorrow in the World Cup team relay.
I'm not sure how Italy select their team. I know every team is different. Some people use the fastest single run. Some people use the fastest result, the highest result from the weekend. I'm not sure what method the Italians are using to select their athlete for tomorrow.
We'll find out when that preliminary roster is released a little later on tonight, which could change, of course, after men's singles tomorrow. It's been a great start of the season, relatively speaking. Nothing to grinch about for the performance of Sweden, because Tova and Svante Koala are really, relatively speaking, I mean, Elsa, out of the gate pretty well with regular showings in the World Cup.
Absolutely. Tova, I think, sitting in 13th after the first run, a really strong result for her. She's just going to want to keep this clean and maintain that ranking as she goes into this second run. Unfortunately, she's already losing time, dropping 1/10 back already as we go into curve 9-10.
And why I say relative is that Sweden is a very small nation in this sport. They are looking to perhaps build a track in Sweden over the next 4 or 5 years, so that'll be exciting.
They have a long-term partnership with the Austrians who coach them and help them with their sled technology. Dropping back into 4th then, not maintaining that time from the first run. I'm sure she won't be so happy with that. But in general, that's a pretty strong result for Tova. Really tough for these Swedish athletes because they both need to get consistently high finishes in order for the Swedish Federation to send them to the Olympics, as they have their own national standard. So for them, just getting into the World Cups unfortunately aren't enough, as they'll have to get some higher results to make those Olympic teams.
Yeah, we've seen that over the years. I've seen the Netherlands outside of speed skating. If you take part in any other winter sport, you better be top 3 or 4, or you're not going to make the Olympic team based on their federations.
Absolutely, and Norway have a similar thing. It's one of the reasons that's contributing to us not seeing many Norwegian sliders at the moment. Really clean line there out of curve 13, and she seems quite happy.
Summer Pritchard is the second of 3 from the United States in today's race. Pritchard, a 5-time World Cup winner around the circuit over the past 5 or 6 years. She's a 3-time Olympian. Now lives in Lake Placid, New York, where one of the 2 USA tracks is located, and where the federation is based.
And they have a fantastic start training facility out there. As you mentioned earlier, we were lucky enough to use it for a start competition in the early part of last season. So these athletes will be on that start ramp throughout the summer, really building that speed and power for the starts. She's in the green here, hitting before curve 13, putting her feet down there. That's going to cost us some time, and I suspect we might see it turning red in this finish.
300s at the last split, falling into the red, losing about 1/10 of a second on the final few curves. So Latvia has done just what we expected they might do, Elsa. They're moving up some positions, making what do you call it, riding the elevator here in run number 2.
Absolutely, not the cleanest of first, not the fastest of first runs for Latvia, but Bottas staying in that first position right now. Some problems there, unfortunately, as we saw her hitting before curve 13, and that problem just carrying through onto the exit, having to tap the feet down, and then we saw it going red in the finish. This is where her problems really started. You can see she hits here before curve 13. And then just feet down.
Some nations have love-hate relationships with certain tracks. I think it's safe to say that the USA, for the most part, has a hate-hate relationship with Oberhof. And holiday greetings from Summer. Keep in mind, the Americans did make the podium earlier today in women's doubles. Now here's Dorothea Schwarz in her first year on the World Cup. Just 19 years old. She grew up in the city of Innsbruck.
And speaking of love-hate relationships with tracks, I think it's safe to say that Austria has a rather hate-hate relationship with Sigolda, but hopefully that will be changing for them as we go there in the new year.
Isn't that the strangest thing, Elsa? A nation that now has taken control on basically every track in the world except one.
Just hitting there on the right side before curve 13, manages it okay. Yes, it's incredibly strange that Austria, who are so strong all over the world, have just really struggled on the track in Sigolda. We've seen them have so many problems, particularly with their relay there. I'm not sure if they may have only once or twice finished actually relays there. They have had so many problems there over the years, but luckily a solid run here for the young Austrian, as she's just gaining experience on this World Cup to take forward into her future seasons.
Great showing for Dorothea Schwarz. She finished 9th in her first World Cup race in Lillehammer, followed that up with a 15th on her home track last week in Innsbruck. But now she could crack the top 10 again. She's one spot away here.
And you can see her coach is just there shouting on the start behind her. It's something that's being picked up by more and more teams, this shouting on the start, and I think it's great. It's something we see in the bobsled and skeleton athletes. There's so much noise on the start, but traditionally the Luge starts have been silent, so it's great to see a bit more noise and energy coming on the starts nowadays.
Given that, does it even matter at all to the athletes, or is it just for the general psyche of the atmosphere?
I think it depends a little bit on the person. Some people like it quiet so they can focus. I quite like a bit of noise. It's normally noisy in training, so it makes it feel a little less different to training.
Verena Hofer held only a 200th of a second advantage over Schwarz after the first run, but she's opened that up, as you see, to a 1/10 of a second, thanks to the second fastest start so far.
She's looking like she's putting together a nice run here. That really strong start, definitely building her some time as she's coming into this section of the track.
She's lost a little to the Austrian down here at the bottom, but maintaining a 1/10 of a second. If she's clean here, she'll hold her spot. Top 10 for Verena Hofer.
Pretty solid result there for the Italian. Kept it clean throughout that run, and that was enough to get her that top 10. And she seems pretty happy with that result.
It's her best of the season so far. She did have a very impressive 13th place result at the Olympic Games in Beijing.
Olympic Games, you were allowed 3 athletes per nation. World Cup, we're allowed 4. So often we see some of these athletes having really great results at the Games. And then just coming off that, it can be quite difficult to get those same results once they come back into the World Cup, just because some of these nations do have a 4th athlete. But top 10 finish here today will be a really strong result for her.
Top 10 out of the qualifying group. In fact, there's only one more remaining of the final 9 that had to qualify. That's Melina Fischer, way up in 5th place. But now we hit mostly seated athletes, headlined by Natalie Maag of Switzerland, 27-year-old from Bernitshausen, Schweiz.
It looks like she had a little bit of a problem there on the start, just getting her right hand in. She had to grab the sledge twice with her right hand. Only something really small, but when we're working with such small margins in this sport, that can make a difference with her settle.
She lists as her favorite place to be in the world somewhere on the beach, which you don't see a lot of on the World Cup Tour.
No, not many beaches. There is one close to Sigulda, although I'm not sure it's the warmest beach in the world. Really nice position there going down that straight. You could see her extending her head back, really going for that 4.
Nice showing, 4/1000ths of a second. The differential between Maag, who just takes over the lead from Switzerland, and Hofer, whom she just topped. Natalie Maag had 2 top 6 finishes last year, the OBERHOF World Cup, including as high as a 4th just off the podium. So she knows this track and she's comfortable here.
Yeah, really great showing from her. Nice to see her getting a top 10 again. You could see just the positioning she had in that bottom section of track, just enough to buy her the time at the finish. And I'm sure she will be excited to head back to St. Moritz next season, at the end of the season.
After the Olympic Games, first stop, that'll be fun. So Maag with the lead, but her friend Anna Reiter is grabbing the handles with just a 3/1000th of a second advantage over Natalie. Anna's done well over her short, still young career on this track, including capturing the World Championship in 2023.
And an Olympic medal in Beijing.
Silver at the last Olympics. Also took silver last year at the 2nd World Cup on this track in Thuringia.
She's putting together a nice run here. She's building on that lead. She's now 12/100ths ahead of Maag. We saw Maag making up time in the bottom section, but Anna is very much known to do that as well. She's maintaining it at 1/10. And a really good
nice job. Yeah, that was great. The straightaway into the finish. Kreisel. Here's Anna Bierreiter from Berchtesgaden, tapping just before the finish, but plenty of an advantage. She builds on her lead on Natalie Maag. This will be a top 8 for Bierreiter, who's still looking to make it onto the podium for the first time this season. She had a 5th last week in Eagles, Austria.
Anna, an incredibly hard-working athlete. I know she does a lot in the gym over summer. Really works hard with the sled technicians on her sled technology, so she definitely will be looking to get back into those medals this season. A really nice line there coming out of curve 13. Pressing that head back. And just this hit, it was before the finish line, so it will have cost a very small amount of time, but not enough to put her behind.
Ashley Farquharson, the last of the Americans to go, holds a pretty safe advantage. Nothing's safe in the sport of luge, but 9/100ths, as you see, is the lead she takes over Bierreiter into her 2nd and final run here in Oberhof. Gave away about half of that, exactly half of that, with the start split.
Ashley's not the fastest starter in the world. I know it's something she has been working very hard on. Still not managing to quite get up there with the fastest starters, but she does build a lot of speed down in the bottom section, and she has very good lines. So we can maybe see her getting some more time down in this bottom section. She's now up to 12/100ths ahead. And a really clean line there out of 13.
Building on her lead, Ashley Park-Larson has been on balance the strongest of the American women, over the most consistent, I should say, over the last couple of seasons, as she holds on to her spot into the top 7.
I believe she was the highest finisher for an American in the Beijing Olympics in 2022.
She was.
And now she had a real breakout season last year, so it's great to see her bringing that into this season and continuing to get some strong results.
That's right. She was also the top placing American in the World Cup points last year. Obviously, when Emily Sweeney is on, Emily's as fast as anyone, but Ashley has been pretty steady. And you know, Elsa, you mentioned trying very hard to work on her start. We have seen athletes over the years.
Merry Christmas, Ashley.
Wolfgang Kindl among them, who spent a lifetime trying to finally get good at the start, and Wolfie finally did. He got his starts together at age 30 or so.
It's about technique. You can do a lot of work in the gym, but until you have the technique, it's not going to get you there. So it's a combination of real huge amounts of gym work, technique, being on that ramp throughout the summer. It's one of the challenges for the smaller nations. If we don't have access to start ramps, we can't work on that technique. US are very lucky they have this amazing start facility. Austria, another nation that also has this start facility. So for these athletes, they're going to want to get as much time on that start ramp as they can throughout the summers, so that when they're on the ice in the winter, they can produce those starts.
Barbara Allmeyer held just 0.02 of a second on American Park-Larson after run number 1. These lines are not perfect, but Allmeyer has been known to find a lot of speed down at the bottom of the track.
Yeah, just looking a little rough in those transitions, not absorbing them as nicely as we've seen some of the other athletes. Getting those rough transitions, although it doesn't look like huge mistakes, it will cost time, and we can see her dropping behind Ashley here at the finish.
Park-Larson jumping into the top 6 now, as only Austrians and Germans remain in this competition. So Ashley will hope that maybe she can move into the top 4, maybe even onto the podium, as her teammates from the USA did in the second round of women's doubles earlier today.
Barbara just stopping right outside my commentary booth here, as she didn't quite make it up the finish ramp. Still young, still early in her career. She has so much potential, and it's great for her to be building on this World Cup circuit. You can just see these transitions a little bit rough, a little bit of ice spraying out behind her. Not big mistakes, but enough to cost her some time.
Yeah, no doubt about it. This will be her second top 7 in 3 races in her first full season on the World Cup. As you see, Ashley Park-Larson has a pretty safe lead over the rest of the field right now, with 6, or I should say 5 remaining Germans and Austrians. Melina Fischer won the Nations Cup qualifying race yesterday. As I say, every race, if you win that qualifying race, even though you're not part of the seeded group, you're automatically a contender the next day.
Absolutely, and particularly the lower ranked athletes in that seeded group, they sort of swap in and out week to week. So just because you're at Nations Cup doesn't mean you're not an incredibly strong athlete. A bit high there on the end of 11, skidding out of 11. You could hear it as well as see it. That will have cost her some time. As you see, she's dropping back into the red now with that mistake.
But it's still close enough where this is going to be very tight between the German and the American. Melina Fischer crosses in 4th place. She lost a lot down there at the bottom, Elsa.
Yeah, some problems in the middle section of the track. We saw a big skid, we saw a couple of other small issues, and we're working with really small margins here. When you make those mistakes in that middle section, in those transitions, they just stay with you down to the finish because you've lost the time then. Still quite a young athlete, still one of the youngest in the German team, so she is still building, and you can just see there one of those mistakes, hitting a little bit early before 12.
20 years old, she'll hit her home track in Altenburg shortly after the holiday break. That will be fun to see how Melina performs there. But this is her third World Cup, Elsa. Just 3 times she's raced on the World Cup here in Oberhof, and she's been top 10 in all 3 of those races.
So great to see. And speaking of Altenburg, a shout out to the Youth A FIL Continental Cup athletes who will be out there racing later this week.
Terrific. Here's Mirla Frabel, who's won and only World Cup victory in her still young career, came right here in Oberhof, the first of the 2 races this past January.
Currently sitting in the green ahead of Ashley. She's putting down a really solid run so far. But as we said, we see Ashley really building that speed in the bottom section, so she's going to have to keep up with that as we go down. Really nice clean exit there.
Yeah, nice. 800s. This looks like she'll hold on to her spot in the top 4 rather, and she does by 700ths of a second. So top 5 for Park Larson, top 4 at least for Mirla Frabel. But the 3 best athletes in the world, the 3 most successful, we're getting ready at the top of the track.
Great to see this crowd building from the first athlete on the first race up till now. More and more spectators arriving, and we absolutely love to see it. They love their luge in this area of Germany. So much legacy here, really fantastic to see.
And she's the only one that grew up here in Oberhof of the current German athletes, because you have 2 from the Altenburg area and 1 from Bavaria, although 3 of them train out of Oberhof.
Yeah, since Koningsee hasn't been active, it seems like Germany has really made a home out of this Oberhof track since it's been refurbished, and it's really great to see. We're looking forward to getting back to Koningsee, and I wonder if more of them will move back towards that side of the country once that track is open.
No reason not to. It's a great track, the favorite of so many. And what's great about this German program is that they do have these 4 tracks, and they spend time on all of them. All right, podium time here in Oberhof. Lisa Schulte captured the World Championship last year. The Austrian is still in search of her first ever World Cup victory on the senior circuit. Only a 1/10 of a second separate the top 3 after run number 1.
Currently 1300ths ahead. Just losing 100th there in this top section, but a lot of track still to come. We saw the German building speed down in the bottom section, so she's going to have to keep this clean. It's now 1500ths ahead. She's building time, putting together a really solid run, and a very clean exit there. Really nice form down that straight.
She'll hold her position. She'll be on the podium again. Will she put the pressure on the last 2 to go? We'll find out. It's the best time so far here in run number 2. And Elsa, that's a great sign this late in the heat.
Absolutely, the track seems to be holding up, which is really good in this humidity. Some of the fog here is lifted that we saw earlier in the day. The visibility is noticeably improved. So seeing this track holding up, really fantastic for these final sliders.
3 races, 3 podiums for Lisa Schulte, who really is coming into her own as one of the best and most consistent lugers in the world.
Coming into this run, we had less than a 1/10 of a second between first and third, so really small margins we're working with here. The next 2 athletes are going to have to keep it very clean, as we saw Lisa putting down such a nice run here.
The 2 remaining now, Julia Tobitz of Germany and Madeleine Egler of Austria. They've won more races than anyone in women's luge over the past 3 seasons. Respectively, they have 29 and 13 World Cup victories. They also share an awful fate of 1 crash at the last Olympics separated them from the podium. But now they have taken control of women's luge. Here's Julia Tobitz, the 4-time World Cup overall champion.
Absolutely, 2 athletes that as we go back to the China track this year, I'm sure will be wanting to leave their mark on it and show that they can come past those mistakes that they made at the games there. Already in the green here, just slipping between
Back
green and red.
Forth. Right. This is tight. Julia always fast. Don't ever count her out down here at the bottom, but she doesn't have the perfect line, Elsa.
Just working a little bit in that straight, not what she would have wanted. Dropping back into second. Guaranteeing
Getting across
Austria.
the finish.
Guaranteeing
That's right,
Austria first place. Either it will be Lisa or it will be Madeleine.
Exactly. So Julia Tobitz ends up on the podium. Another race, another podium for the German. And one thing is as sure as the sun coming up in the morning, and that's Julia smiling for the luge spectators at the bottom of a run, win, lose, or draw.
Absolutely, she just loves this sport, and I mean that's why we're all here, that's why we all make the sacrifices and travel for the whole winter. And even when she doesn't get the results she necessarily was hoping for, it's great to see her smiling at the finish and inspiring those fans.
As a result of being in the top 3 here, I believe Julia will hold on to her top spot in the World Cup rankings when we see them after the sled. But the matter at hand right now, as Elsa mentioned, a guaranteed gold medal for Austria. Lisa Schulte already with her best ever World Cup finish. Will she have her first World Cup victory, or will that go for the second week in a row to Madeline Egla? Madeline fast at the start, she's fast at the finish. Let's see what she can open up here.
It is hers to lose really in this run. Start record there for Madeline. No
That's
surprises.
making a statement.
She is such a powerful starter. I know she's had some shoulder injuries over the last few years, but it looks like she's really overcome those as she's been doing such fast starts this season. She just needs to keep it clean, hitting early there into curve 10, managing it well, little high end of 11. Not the cleanest run. We saw some issues with her in the first run as well, though, so she can definitely maintain speed.
This is going to be closer than it needed to be. 2/10. She should still hang on, but she gave away a bunch of time down at the bottom. All the same, a win is a win, and for Madeline Egla of Austria, it's 2 in a row, 2 weeks in a row, and her 14th career World Cup victory.
And it just shows how fast she can be. She didn't have a clean run. She had some problems there, and yet she was still able to beat her teammate by 15 hundredths. When we come back here in the new year, she will definitely be looking to clean that up and aim for that track record.
Amazing starter, as you said, Elsa. I recall the race last year in Lake Placid where she had an awful shoulder injury, basically was operating with one arm and still had a fast enough start to win the race.
Yeah, she works very hard. I think she did a lot of work to rehab that shoulder. You can just see she had some problems here in this 9-10 transition. Not the cleanest entrance, and again, not the cleanest entrance here into curve 12. And she had to work quite hard down that straight, as we'll see now. But even so, such a fast time for her.
She was fighting it, there's no question about that. Celebration for Peter Pentz, George Hackel, Thomas Stoy, Wolfgang Kindl, the Austrian contingent, who find themselves on the podium in all 3 races today to open up action in Oberhof.
Absolutely, and they are definitely one to watch in tomorrow's relay event, having had such a great week so far.
The Egla sisters, 4 victories in their last 4 races on the World Cup.
What a great couple of weeks in the Egla household.
The results show Austria and Germany holding the top 4 spots. Ashley Farquharson moves up into the top 5 for the USA to break that Austria-Germany top 8 stranglehold. Switzerland and Italy round out the top 10. And to look at all of the others, I believe Tobitz will hold on to a slim lead over Egla in the World Cup standings. Madeline finished 7th in the opening race. Meantime, Emily Sweeney of the United States missed out. She will drop out of the top 3 as Lisa Schulte of Austria makes it 3 for 3 onto the podium to open up this season. There we have it, a slight lead by Tobitz over Egla and Schulte. Frabel jumps up into 4th place. It's going to be tight. This is going to be close, Elsa, the rest of the way through. A lot of races, of course, still in Germany to come.
Absolutely, only 3 races done, 6 races still to go for these World Cup rankings. We could see a lot of shuffling, but a great start to the season.
Still ahead, we've got the awards presentation to these 3 podium winners, and then we will hear from them as Patrick gets set for the interviews down at the finish area. But to set the stage, tomorrow we've got the men's singles competition coming your way first, and then the team relay. It will be the first of the year And then, Elsa, you'll be back here in Oberhof next month to take part in the next mixed team event. I'm sure you're looking forward to that.
Yes, it's such a fun thing to do. So many of these nations don't get the opportunity to do team relay because we just don't have 6 athletes. So to get to do the mixed event, to use the reaction start and the paddles, it really is so much fun.
Okay, top 3, let's relive the 3 that have been the most successful all season long. We missed Emily Sweeney this weekend, but the other 3 certainly held their spots. So 3rd place goes to Julia Tobitz. Very rare that Julia's not in the top 2, but another race, another podium for the 29-time winner on the World Cup. 2nd place, I believe this is a career best on the World Cup to go along with her World Championship title. It's Austria's Lisa Schulte. But the win for the 14th time in her career, Madeline Egler. She has been dominating on her home track, and now here in Germany, each of the 4 runs, the 2 races over the past 2 weeks, it's been impressive to see Madeline head into the holiday break on top of the world and on top of the podium right now, and just behind Tobitz in the World Cup standings.
And they get their little snowman there.
Well, also, we're hoping to get some interviews, but while I've got a moment, I want to wish you a happy holiday season wherever you're headed, to England or Ireland or Iceland or one of the lands. I hope you have a warm and safe holiday.
Thank you very much, Tim, and same to you and to all of our spectators and listeners. We wish you all a very happy holiday and cannot wait to see you back on the live stream in the new year.
Excellent work as always. That's Elsa Desmond from Team Ireland with the call of today's women's competition, and we'll take it out from here. We'll hope to get some interviews. The Austrian flag flying high from track to track. Team Österreich dominated the World Championships in Germany last year. And keep in mind, after the Olympic Games in 2026, we'll head right back to Innsbruck for the traditional, on the 7 years, World Championships on that track outside of Innsbruck and Eagles, which they're constructing now to modernize. So again, we'll hope to get some interviews. Things are always different. Tomorrow we've got men's singles. 30 will start. We'll see if Austria can dominate there, or whether Max Langenhahn finally makes his way back to the top of the podium here on his home track. You got to figure Max is one of the favorites. And a little bit of trivia for you. We had a 55-year-old from Slovakia trying to qualify for the World Cup this week. He didn't make the field, but still was very impressive to see Stefan Dachka take part yesterday.
Julia, congratulations. World Cup number 3 this season. Home race for you. How challenging was it for you?
Ja, also ich habe die Erlaubnis, Deutsch zu reden, also mache ich das jetzt. Es ist wunderschön, zu Hause zu rodeln, aber ich muss ganz ehrlich sagen, es schmerzt im Herzen, dass wir einen Doppelerfolg von Österreich haben. Ja, ich habe versucht, mein Bestes zu geben, aber die 2 Mädels haben es einfach super gemacht, sie waren grandios, von daher Hut ab. Aber morgen greifen wir nochmal an. Thank you very much.
Credit Julia for working a little bit of English into that interview, and another great showing for the German. But the Austrians held the top 2 spots today in Oberhof.
Congratulations on the podium again. How was the race for you today?
Thank you. It was a great race. It was really a lot of fun to race today. I had a really bad training, so I'm really happy with my performance today.
How was the track for you? How were the conditions?
Great. I mean, it was not as fast as the last day because of the weather, but it was still great conditions.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So that's Lisa Schulte with a 2nd place finish, and her mentor and much taller teammate Madeline Egler wins for the 14th time
Madeline,
on the World Cup.
what a race for you. Again on the top. How do you feel?
Well, I feel amazing, especially I kind of heard that I had a start record after 6. I heard it and I was like, yes, this is what I wanted. My run was not that great, but I guess I made it with my start and I'm really happy about that.
It's not your home race, but the crowd was really cheering for you. How does it feel to come down here into the finish area?
Yeah, it's amazing. I really love it when the fans just cheer for everyone, because everyone has earned like that they finish. So it's really great to have fans here.
Thank you.
Can you believe that Madeline actually heard the track announcer while she was still making her way down on that winning run? Well, the exclamation point to this day of racing, Madeline just said it, the crowd cheering for her. This is a crowd that certainly roots for their hometown German heroes, but they love the sport of luge, and they made for a great atmosphere on this opening day of competition. We've still got one more to go in Oberhof tomorrow. It's men's singles as well as the team relay. Until then, our congratulations to the Austrian and German champions today and all of those who took part in the doubles and women's singles. So until tomorrow, for Elsa Desmond and our entire FIL television production crew, I'm Tim Singer saying so long, and thanks for joining us.
Weiß das jemand von euch? Schon, wo es lang geht. Freuen uns wahnsinnig, dass wir unterstützt werden, die Firma EBERSPÄCHER. Die Familie seid einerseits persönlich kommt mit, das wird hervorragend. Wir tragen die Schlitten nach unten, geben einfach noch ein bisschen Vollgas, ein bisschen Musik. Und liebe Familie,
Lisa, gratuliere, das war ein Lauf heute. Wie fühlst du dich jetzt?
Ich bin mega happy und zufrieden.